Let's get right into this one. So we're using the new Vintage Brooches mold by Iron Orchid Designs, and I'm using a two-part resin. This is the amazing casting resin. It sets white, and it sets in 10 minutes, so it's a good one to use for quick crafts. I've got my magnets out and handy, and we're just going to pour it in a few of the molds. I kind of eyeballed how much I was going to make, so I'm just pouring it in whichever ones I think I'll want to use. Then just kind of making sure I get it into all the little edges and work fast and get my magnets set in there. It already set up a little bit too much, but it still worked. I was able to get the magnets in there, set in there a little bit. So that works. So now after it's completely set, I'm just going to pop them out. You can see they're still a little bit soft, like they're pliable, but they turned out really nice. Okay, so this is Spring Melody. This is the new paint inlay from IOD from the Spring 2025 release. So this is just a cream colored acrylic paint that I'm using as a base. And I'm just painting the whole thing, getting it in all of that detail that's around the edge of this brooch. And now that that's all dry, I'm using clear patina to apply the paint inlay. It's just what I prefer. You could have just used another coat of paint to set it in. I just tend to gravitate more towards using the clear patina and paint inlays. I don't know. I don't have a reason. I just prefer it. So I'm just making sure I have a fairly thick, even coat. Like not thick, globby thick, but you want it thick enough that there's going to be some substance there to grab onto this paint inlay. I also misted this paint inlay a little bit just to give it a little head start. Make sure you set it on there the right way. And I'm just using my fingertips to kind of smush it down and let another little mist of water to help that paint release into my clear patina. And then we want to dry it completely. I'm hurrying up the process here a little bit because I'm in a hurry always. And then you mist it again to release that transfer paper off the back. This is what will pull that paper off the back. So I'm just going to pull up an edge and it's not quite, the paint isn't quite down. So I give it another little mist, smush it down a little bit more, and I'll give it a chance for that to set a little bit better. And we'll try the other side. There, that's working better. Perfect. It looks very vintage and authentically old. But I'm going to help that along with some DIY paints, Dark and Decrepit. So this is, if you've been following me for a while, you know this is my go-to for an antiquing look. It's kind of, I use it as a glaze. And then I brush it on and I go over with a wet baby wipe and I just dab it back and it leaves the dark color kind of set into the detail of this mold. So I'm just going to continue and do that on the whole thing. Wiping it off until I like it. You want to work in small sections with this because it does dry very fast. And once this dries, because it is technically like a top coat, once it dries, you're not going to be able to manipulate it at all. So you want to make sure that you're working in small sections so you still have the ability to dab that back. There, that gives it a nice kind of antique vintagey look. And make sure you do seal your paint inlay before you start playing around with this. Otherwise, you're going to be wiping that paint inlay off. I think I missed that part in my recording that I had actually sealed that paint inlay before I started messing with this antiquing part. Very, very important to seal it first. Now I decided I wanted a little bit of green in there to give it kind of that oldie oldie look. I started thinking I could just dab it on with my finger, but that wasn't giving me the look that I wanted. I didn't want it just setting on top of the detail. I wanted it to get in there. But I struggled along with this for a while before I realized that that's not working. So I'm just going to grab this brush and we're going to actually work this green right in there, just like we did with the dark and decrepit. It just adds another layer, a dimension of color. The more layers, the better. I'm all about the layers. I'm going to water that down a little bit and go right over the inlay. Just to give it, again, it's a little bit more dimension. And then you just kind of dab it off and it just, it's more of an authentic look, I find. And you can play with this with any colors you choose. Whatever kind of goes with the vibe you're looking for. Okay, now another coat of the clear patina as a sealant. I want to seal in all that color. The paint that I used for the green is DIY paint in Fancy Farm Girl, and that will reactivate until you seal it. So I don't want it to just be able to be wiped off or something with a damp cloth. So I'm going to seal it in there so it's a permanent thing. You could use wax or any kind of top coat for this step. I'm just using the clear patina because I have it out. And I want a little bit of a kind of a more of a matte finish, so I am dabbing on top of that clear coat. It just gives it so it's not so uniform. A quick dry with the dryer and one more layer because more is always better, right? So this is Golden Ticket, also by DIY Paint. And this I want just on the high points. So I'm just going with my fingertip and just lightly brushing it over the high points, the detail in this mold. It just adds that little bit of oomph to the final product. And there you have it. It's a really simple, quick, easy project. You could make this out of clay or the two-part resin like I did, and it's adorable.